Milton Erickson had a client who came to him to lose weight. And she says to him, you know, I go on a diet for a week, 2 whole weeks, as long as I can stand it. And then I just binge and binge and binge. Milton listens and he says, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go on your diet for 1 week, 2 whole weeks, as long as you can stand it. And binge for 1 whole day. And then go back on your diet for 1 week, 2 weeks, as long as you can stand it. And binge for 1 whole day, maybe 2 whole days. So she's taking 14 steps forward, 1 step back. 14 steps forward, 1 step back. And sure enough, she did drop the excess weight. One of the things to notice about the story is that what Milton did was he used her pattern of binging and dieting to help her in a very natural way, because it was her pattern, accomplish her goals. Now, the next step from there would be to teach her some new patterns so that when she's down to her normal, her weight goal, that she's automatically just eating in ways that healthy, nutritional support for her staying at her target weight, giving her the energy she needs, helping her be healthy. And so what I do as a hypnotherapist is I listen to what the people's patterns are. And I use that as a beginning point to help them accomplish their goals. So I asked you a question in my 1 minute this morning. So what has going to a new place for the very first time and making a wrong turn got to do with losing weight? The answer is that people will say, you know, I was on my diet and I was doing great, and that hot fudge sundae was just too much. I've blown it. And then they stop their program, they just go binge and eat, and so they put the weight back on and feel like they failed. And I point out to them that if they were driving someplace and they made a wrong turn, that they have, once they realize they made a wrong turn, what do? Do they stop? I'll never get there. And it's for hours. Do they keep making wrong turns because they made the one and they noticed they made one? Well, I might as well keep making wrong turns because or do they go home? Or do they turn around, however far it is, and get back on track so they get to their destination? That metaphor is very powerful in helping people realize that if they get off track, for whatever reason, they just come back when they recognize what's going on. They just come back and get back on course. So another metaphor that I use comes from my teacher, Dave Dobson, who is a pilot. So, any pilots here? Anybody who's a pilot? All right, so what percentage of the time do you think an airplane is actually on course, directly on course? Guesses?
I don't want to.
There's more than 0. Okay.
10% then.
Okay, 10% is too much. All right, so an airplane is actually on course about 5% of the time. And what's going on is the pilot is paying attention, oh, we're off course a little bit, and then making all these little course corrections. The plane is being moved around by the air, there's going to be wind and all these other things that are going to keep it off course just a little bit, so there's all these tiny little course corrections. Autopilot does that too. It knows where it's going, and it notices, well, we're half a degree off course, and it makes those little corrections. And so when people come to see me, the perfectionists, you know, it has to be exactly right, I point out to them that they are perfectly human, with all the inconsistencies and everything that goes along with that. And when they notice that they're off course, what do? Well, they get back on course. Now, this takes a lot of pressure off people who have to have it. It has to be exactly right. It has to be perfect. Perfection is just a notion, by the way. It came from the Greeks. It doesn't exist in nature. And even in non-Western cultures, it doesn't really compute. It's not there for people. The Asian people who are so adamant about their children making the very possible best grades are not looking for perfection. They may be looking for having their children do the best in their class or do as best they can, but it's not about being perfect, because that notion just isn't part of their mindset. So my job is to notice people's patterns when it comes to eating, to notice people's patterns when it comes to their attitudes about eating. So what does eating mean to this person? It might mean comfort. It might mean being defiant. Okay, I'm not supposed to eat chocolate. So what do they want is chocolate. It's a forbidden fruit. So it builds up that energy. So, and what I tell them, once I get past the emotional reasons for eating, is simply the 4 slender eating strategies are, which if the person's hungry, physically hungry, they should eat something. Which means if they're not physically hungry, there's no eating. And I teach them the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger. I teach them to eat foods that taste good to them. I teach them to pay attention to their eating so they take time to chew and thoroughly taste and enjoy the food. Turning off the TV, the radio, the computer, putting down the book, the magazine, and just eat. One of my clients says, what if I get bored? I said, well, you're done. If it's not interesting enough to eat, you're done. That's a great question. And then the 4th of the strategies is when they start to feel a little bit full, it's just time to stop. And of course, one of the big emotional issues for some people is eating everything that's on their plate. Okay, so I give them permission, leave some food on your plate. It's okay, you're an adult, you can make your own decisions, your own rules about eating now. And if food is going to go to waste, it's not going to go to my waste. Because that's way more painful than throwing it in the trash can, and those starving children in Indiana do not get anything to eat either way. And of course, what's happening here is when I say that, they laugh, and that very act of laughing at the notion is starting to unravel it. If we laugh at our problems, they lose their power. There I go again, overeating. Oh gosh, what am I going to do? Is a much better response than I'll never be able to. Wesley Anderson, Doctor of Clinical Hypnotherapy.